the visionary co-founders of Envicore.
I'm CEO and co-founder of Envicore.
I am the CTO at Envicore.
We are able to de-risk the technology.
Has a tangible impact.
Were you in the same boat as Shahrukh?
I mean, that's a bit different.
And how did you guys start at Envicore?
It's a funny story.
This into a successful venture.
You know, how fate landed the two of you together.
Ownership issues.
Yeah, end of 2019.
To validate that he had the same intentions.
Absolutely, that person might not be able to help me out. But
Let's talk about why you guys do what you do.
in 2016, when I boarded the plane,
Mine dam collapsed.
released close to 2 million meter cube.
What is your objective and how are you guys going to achieve it?
Use the overall environmental impact to upcycling the mineral waste.
Challenges that you face today.
Talk about the finance challenge. Aseem can talk about like the adoption challenge. I don't know if I have any high
Well, we'll
points.
get to the lowest point. We'll get to the lowest as well, but we'll start off with the good things first. What does really a CEO and CTO does in a day?
Grab a broom and clean up the lab too.
At the lab scale, what is the product quality?
There is a requirement that I have to go and work in the lab. I'll do that.
Just one advice and why.
One of the biggest one, in my opinion, is to understand the market.
It's a long journey and don't lose hope.
Welcome to another episode where we decode the success formula of world-class performers, innovators, and changemakers. This episode is not just about how two individuals are shaping the future of environmental sector. It's also about their resilience, their innovation, and the profound impact of aligning passion with purpose. It is a story that bridges the gap between environmental sustainability and entrepreneurial spirit, featuring Aseem Pandey and Shahrukh Shamim, the visionary co-founders of Envicore. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thanks a lot, Ravi.
Thanks, Ravi.
It's a pleasure to have you guys here. So for those who don't know you, together Aseem and Shahrukh founded Envicore, a firm that stands at the intersection of innovation and sustainability. It's not just a company, it's a testament to what can be achieved when entrepreneurial spirit meets a commitment to the planet. Envicore reflects the founders' vision of creating a more sustainable future through actionable, impactful projects. It embodies their shared vision, tackling the adverse narrative associated with industrial waste by offering innovative, sustainable byproduct treatment solutions. In today's episode, we'll explore their journey from ambitious students in Calgary to becoming entrepreneurs who are not only leading change in the environmental sector, but also serving as the beacons for the South Asian community in Canada and abroad. Super excited to chat with both of you today and to learn from you. To start us off, though, in your own words, who are you and what do you do? We'll start off with you, Shahrukh.
Great question. My name is Shahrukh Shamim, CEO and co-founder of Envicore. Background in chemical engineering and material science and metallurgical engineering from India. And right now in Envicore, we are working on transforming different type of waste minerals coming from mining, construction, demolition, and even natural materials into cementitious materials, low carbon cementitious materials to replace cement up to 20-30% to make sure that at least we are contributing in solving one of the biggest problems that mining industry or resource production industry face, and then also supporting the adjacent industry, which is construction, in reducing their embodied CO2. And I'll let Aseem introduce himself, and then we can go into detail what we do and how we do it. Aseem.
That's awesome. Over to you, Aseem.
Yeah, I mean, Shahrukh pretty much does based on what we are doing at Envicore. So I'll just talk about myself and then quickly give you some insights on what we do at Envicore as well. So my name is Aseem. I am the CTO at Envicore. So both Shah and I, we were doing our masters at University of Calgary when we started out into this entrepreneurial journey towards the end of our masters through the support of Government of Alberta. So they had their first pilot program where they were looking for scientists and engineers who can take their research to the next level. And that's how we became the part of the first pilot program ran by the Government of Alberta at that time. We both were working on mostly on the nanotechnology aspect of the chemical engineering. Both had their own research areas where we were working on, but then we took our learnings from what we have learned and how we can manipulate those fundamental physical behavior of these materials, which are pretty much present in all the mineral streams or all the kind of streams that we work on. And that's how Envicore started. So we initially were mostly focused on tailing ponds is a big problem here in Alberta. So we were initially focused on how we can separate the water out from these tailing ponds and then separate out and then restore basically the impact that it has on the overall landscape. So that's how we started. We developed a technology on separating the water out from these tailing ponds that we have here in Alberta. We ran a pilot as well with one of the, I would say, I don't know how to exactly put them in here, but they are like a testing facility here in Alberta, ran by government of Alberta or supported through government of Alberta, called Innotech. So we did a short pilot there. And that's how we realized, okay, we have taken the water out, but still a huge resource which is sitting around. What can we do with it? And that's how we pivoted into this area where we started basically transforming this mineral waste into supplementary cementitious materials, which can replace cement and concrete, which is the most polluting aspect of the structures that we see built through concrete. So that's a brief introduction of what we do. But yeah.
That's awesome, and it's music to my ears. So we'll explore all that and get into the weaves of it. But before we do that, just understanding your guys' outlook on life, how do you define successful and who do you consider successful in your sphere? We'll start off with you, Shahrukh.
Oh boy, successful. I think from my perspective, we are discovering this as we are moving forward. And there's no simple metric or matrix to assess like how can we define a person would be successful. For us, if you ask me personally from Envicore's perspective, like success means typically that we are able to de-risk the technology at a very large level, scale, and definitely having those required key parameters tested to that extent where we are very comfortable that it can be now replicated in 10 different, 20 different sites all around the world. Having customers that are like really happy with the product, really happy with the technology itself, that yes, what we promise is what we deliver. And then there's again the nuance of, are we being truthful to ourselves and to the community as well? Because we can sell this technology by sugarcoating it, by saying a lot of stuff about, oh yeah, it is carbon neutral, by simply playing with the terminology itself, because you can actually get a lot of publicity and marketing done if you have this buzzwords. But then that's not called success, in my opinion, and Aseem would agree to it because we face this every day. The companies come up with all sorts of interesting buzzword and technologies and get the credit, but then in reality, if you go and scale it up, it's not successful at all. So from our perspective, it's important that what we actually like commit and say that this is what we are providing to the industry is exactly as per technical merit. And at the same time, like we are getting all those required approvals from regulatory body, from government, and from our clients as well. At least I'm giving you from the from Envicore's perspective, not from personal life perspective, because I think we are far from being successful at the moment.
I mean, Shah pretty much touched base on like success from the Envicore perspective. I would just rephrase it, but in a different way. I mean, success from that perspective is like for us is like something which is has a tangible impact. So we are trying to get into an industry where there are a lot of, as Shah said, a lot of there are technologies which are being, you can see them being marketed in a way that they will solve a problem, but is it going to solve a problem at large scale? So that's one of the things. And second is it going to have a tangible impact, right? Because there are a lot of naysayers in the industry as well, right? They really don't want to evolve as well, or they are like, okay, no, this had been tested, and and that also comes out from the a lot of snake oil salesmen which have been there in the past as well. So I would like, from the example perspective, I would say like as long as it's making an impact, even in the early days, even it's at a very small level, that something is what we call successful. The best example for me would be like when Elon Musk started out Tesla, everyone was like, no, electric cars don't have a future, right? Elon would probably sell 100, 200,000 cars, and then that would be it. And which is fine. That's what they did at the beginning. So the impact might be very small, but if you see it now, a lot of these old automakers are also moving into electric cars because they have seen, oh, this is a model which has been tested by Elon Musk. He proved it, and now we have to get into this domain because he has shown that, okay, you can actually scale this up, and he has shown that it can be a successful story. So for us, we are right now taking on those baby steps, working on with the incumbent in this area, showing them the right path on how we can scale this up and doing those small improvements every time. That's how I define success for us, because even right now, from where we started out, from where we are right now, that's a huge leap. So success from that perspective. But yes, like from personal perspective, I would say, yeah, a long way to go.
Yeah, 100%. At least you guys are on the right track. And what I'm hearing from both of you is you guys are leading by example. You're trying to do what nobody else is doing. And so you are really the visionaries that are trying to make a change. So kudos to both of you on that. Before we get into the inner workings of Envicore here, I just want to understand your background. When you came to Calgary as students, you both met over a research project, Seem, as you already told me. Just wanted to get an understanding of what your background was leading into Calgary and how was your time in the universities and how has that helped you to form Envicore today?
I'll go first. So honestly, I've never thought that we're gonna do this, or at least I'm gonna do this after I graduate. My understanding was like when I came here first, I was here in 2015 for an internship by MyTax. There was a third year student, undergraduate student of material science and metallurgical engineering from one of the college in India, and I got the opportunity to firsthand experience the research, cutting edge research, and how it's done in Canada at a premier institute. So when I was here, I was working in Department of Chemistry for 3 months, and then I went back to finish my graduate studies, and then honestly got that feeling that India definitely has a lot of interesting stuff, but do lack in certain aspects. And one of them is definitely having a really well maintained and fully equipped laboratories when it comes to like chemical engineering and then chemistry specific. Then decided that I'm going to pursue my master's from Canada. So applied for multiple positions, got one offer from University of Toronto, one offer from University of Calgary, and then decided that no, I've already seen Calgary, it's a better place, so I'll come over here. Joined in 2016 Department of Chemical Engineering for thesis-based masters. And honestly, my whole idea was I'm gonna do a really good job at masters and then find a job and pretty much settle. That was the idea. In last year, in 2019 or 2018, I got this information from Government of Alberta and then through our thesis professor that there is a program called Green STEM and we should definitely apply because it suits and meets all the requirements that what we are doing with the technologies that we were building respectively. Honestly, applied with not high enthusiasm that we'll get the funding because there's a lot of like big competition going on when you're talking about money. And fortunately, we were among 9 people who got selected among 70 or 80 applicants that came in the beginning. So it was a great moment, but never expected that we'll be on an entrepreneurial journey after graduation. I was pretty much focused on getting a job and settling. That was my understanding, at least, or expectation in the beginning.
That's wonderful. Asim, were you in the same boat as Shahrukh or?
I mean, it's like a bit different, but like Shahrukh already had I would say, like a first-hand experience of how things are at University of Calgary because, as I said, like he was an intern. Like he was a MyTech scholar here during his undergrad. So mine was a bit different. I started working as a petroleum engineer. So I worked as a petroleum engineer for 5 years back in India. And that's so one of the things that I always had in my mind that I would like to do a research-based thesis. And that's when I was looking for different schools. So one of my undergrad senior was already here. So he was doing his master's at University of Calgary. And he told me that there's a way you get into masters. You have to contact professors, and if they get you in, that's one of the ways you can. So I started writing some emails to the professors with no success. So then he gave me an idea that I actually had an offer from UFA, but then like from a professor, but then he moved to Texas, so that did not pan out well for me. But then my senior gave me an idea. He said, "Why don't you come here? You enroll yourself in a course-based masters and meet the professors right away, right?" So that's what I did. So I got myself enrolled in the course-based masters, and then I started reaching out to different professors, and came across Milana Trifkovic, who was also Shahrukh's professor. That is why I said I came in Jan and Shahrukh came in fall. So in the winter semesters, I was actually reaching out to professors. And then in the fall, I switched to my master's with the same professor that Shahrukh is with, and then I was also co-supervised by another professor. Yeah, it was a good experience at the university. So I have never done research. And as Shah said, right, in India, you don't really have that. You don't have all the at least back in the days when we were there. Things might be improving right now. So you don't see that firsthand, or you don't get that firsthand research experience, right? When I arrived there, then I saw like the kind of infrastructure University of Calgary has, and we also went to conferences like UFA and all those things. So that's when we realized, okay, I mean, like the infrastructure is actually promotes research. The way they have developed things around it is what pushes students to do research, and that is a testament on itself. If you see, like University of Calgary has been like really huge on coming up with like a lot of patents applications which have been filed. But what I have seen are like the amount of startups which are coming out of University of Calgary. So you can actually see they are developing that entrepreneurial mindset in the students right from the get-go. And I would also like to applaud like the government of Alberta, like as Shah touched base on, like that pilot program really helped us. Like we got close to $500,000 to start it out, and then that really gave us the boost to start on this journey. And they continued that program, and then university also started a similar program like this to give like kind of an incentive for the research based masters and PhD students so they can take their research to the next level. So yeah, the environment really helped from that perspective as well.
Very interesting. Yeah, I would say Calgary is like the emerging hub because we have the biggest oil players in the market, and we have the biggest technical players coming in. So like Microsoft, Google, it's going to be that new innovation hub. So lots of good things in pipeline for Calgary. If you have to go back to that exact moment when the two of you decided that we need to get into partnership and start a business of our own, can you walk me through with what that moment was? Who came up with the idea? Who took the initiative on it? And how did you guys start at Envicore?
Oh, I can start. It's a funny story. Shahrukh missed that part. One day we were casually, like when he was saying, I would graduate and then find a cushy job. That is true. It actually was probably when we started out, like couple of semesters into our research, we both had the similar mindset. But one day casually, Shahrukh and I used to meet in the lab and then talk about things. And then one day casually, we said we should start something related to how we can provide research based services and do something like that around those areas. So that was the first conversation happened, and then this green stem came, and Shahrukh and I, we both had different projects, like completely different projects we were working on. So we both started out separately, so we never really started out as one company. So we both started out, we both were recipients of this green stem funding from the government of Alberta, and we both started out in the different domains. So I started working on my thesis, and Shahrukh started working on his thesis work. So we both had separate companies. Things were actually going pretty well for both of us. Like I would say, like first 6 months. So these are two separate companies that we are running. And then like midway through, I had some co-founder conflicts with my other co-founder. Me and my professor, both of the professors we had, because we had a very different visions. All three of us then are compared to our other co-founders. So we decided amicably we would venture into different paths. And then at the same time, we also thought about it. Plus, from our coordinator for that Green STEM program, they also suggested you guys have been working together for a while, and why don't you guys join hands and you two work together and take it ahead? So that's how we initially thought about it. It started out separate. The fate landed us together back again.
That's awesome. Shahrukh, anything you want to add on in there?
No, absolutely. I think it was a very important moment at that point of time where we were like, okay, so this happened, so we have to deal with it. But then it was, in hindsight, if you see that it was a better situation for us to channel our energy on making this into a successful venture. To be honest, for me personally, it was a very important moment because it was a defining moment for both of us in a way that, yes, you start a company and then these things happen all the time. The co-founder conflicts, and then there are discussions around ownership issues, so many stuff. But having a clear mindset and understanding that, okay, the common goal is to make this successful, and again, at the end of the day, make an impact. That's what matters the most. So if you have like-minded people who actually help you in doing this, that's actually a better opportunity for you to grab right at that moment. And that's what we did. We thought, okay, having a funding is a good thing, but then having a person who would actually come in with the same mindset as any other member of the company, it's perfect, because then you're creating a culture, you're creating a similar kind of work ethic in the company where everybody's focused that, oh, I have to finish this as soon as possible and I'm not going to leave it for another day. That kind of mindset is important in startup. For some people, especially when you start with a little bit different mindset that, oh, this is a startup, so I'm going to be like pretty cool because now I'm at a very high position from the get-go. I'll have 10 people under me who will be working for me. That kind of mindset doesn't work in startup. It works maybe in corporate, but definitely not in startup. So having a like-minded person on the company who is willing to actually do the work with their own hands, that matters. And at that moment, it came like naturally. So we're like, why not? Let's move on with it. And we formally, I think we joined both the companies, or at least like Aseem joined us in end of 2019, 2020. Yeah. And that was pretty much like the moment where we started working together on understanding like how can we build this company together and be in a position where we can say with certainty that yes, like you can convert research into a high impact business. There's no doubt. Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful, and I love that story. How fate landed the two of you together. I was going to ask you that question, Shahrukh, and I think you already answered it. Is how do you know who to get in partnership with? What are some things that you look out for?
Yeah.
You already listed that having that common goal and having
Yeah.
to make that same impact. Was there something that Aseem did or said that you were, this is the guy that I want to go in partnership with? How did you
Yeah.
validate that he had the same intentions and wanted to make the same impact?
So honestly, like when you work with someone, you get the idea that what kind of work ethics they have. Like, and I'm being very upfront over here. My first co-founder, we started with three individuals in the company in Envicore in 2019 Jan, and one of the co-founder is my professor, which Aseem mentioned, our professor, Dr. Milan Trufkovic. She's doing a great job right now at UFC. And then another co-founder was another PhD student who was actually working on a similar thing as what I was doing on the tailing side. But then again, like when you work with someone, you gauge them, you judge them, not like harshly, but in a manner that is there a compatibility with the person? Can they be like work at the same level of enthusiasm and at the same time have that same grit and fire in the belly? Honestly, it was missing. So you
Mm-hmm.
understand in the beginning that, oh, this person, if you ask them probably 12 in the night, hey, can you do something? And I'm working on it. Can you join me? Absolutely, that person might not be able to help me out. But then when I was working with the team, I got the same feeling as if I ask him something to do at 2 a.m. and if he wants me to do something at 2 a.m., I think we probably might do it because, again, we have this fire in the belly. It's very important. We need to make sure that we are successful. We need to make sure that Envicore is successful and at the same time have a everlasting and positive impact on the world with our technology. So at that point of time, like in 2017, when we started working together, I had this similar concept where we were like working in the lab for like we start at 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. We typically start on the like near afternoon, not in the morning like other people. Like we were not that kind of individual. We're not morning people. As you can imagine, 10 a.m. is not an easy time for us to get up. So automatically we used to start at 11 a.m. or 12 p.m. and then basically go up to 7, 8 or 9 sometimes, or sometimes even farther than that. And it automatically shows that to get the results and to get the success, I think the person is willing to go certain lengths and you can easily judge them from the get-go. So when you work with
Mm-hmm.
someone for like last 3 to 4 years, you automatically have that idea that this is the right person. I think we can trust. And trust is the most important thing over here. When you build a company, you need to understand that as a person that you're going in with the business, to run a business with, is the person trustful? Can I
Mm-hmm.
basically assume that the person is what they're telling me it's actually correct? And we've been our fair share of weird situations where people are not being honest with us, and it does cause problem, no doubt, not just monetary problems, but then the impact is on the business itself, and it's not ideal. You don't want to be in that position. So automatically when you have that kind of trust already built and validated over multiple years, then you don't think twice before taking that decision. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%, and very well articulated, Shahrukh. I love the thought process that you have in there,
Yeah.
and clearly you both are on the same page. That's why you both are here today. So let's get into the inner workings of Envicore. Before we talk about what do you guys do, let's talk about why you guys do what you do.
Mhm.
So the problem of tailing ponds, for somebody from the outside who doesn't have the knowledge of the industry, even though I did research some articles here or there just to get an understanding, how would you explain what the problem is, how big a problem is, and why do we need to solve it?
So with tailings pond, so I'll be very honest. In 2016, when I boarded the plane to Calgary from India, I honestly had no idea about tailings pond. Even though my background is metallurgy, which is metal extraction process, but then if you go on the front end of the metal extraction process, that's where mining happens. But never even encountered in my bachelor's life that tailings is such a big problem. And what exactly is tailings? In 2016, when I started working on this, we learned that tailings is a really big problem for oil sands industry, which is in Alberta, predominantly in Alberta. So learn about what's the quantity and what's the nature of the problem, because when anybody says tailings, they have first of all no idea what exactly it is and how it is related to resource extraction industry. So tailings are typically waste materials, waste rocks that comes out after you have extracted your valuable component from your ore body. So when you're mining rocks, it's very rare that you would have like very high quantity of metal or oil in your ore body, like more than 50%. Doesn't happen, never happens. It's predominantly in the range of 1 to max 5%, or sometimes in the case of oil sands, 10% of important stuff versus the waste stuff. Your 90% most of the time is waste. So when you extract the material, you have to go through certain steps, and which involves crushing, grinding, basically making sure that the important components, which is either metal or oil, can be extracted from these overall big pile of waste and important stuff. That involves hydrometallurgy operation. And hydrometallurgy is a very typical process that involves, as the name suggests, hydro or water. When you're using water, you are actually creating a slurry, just like normal, like the muddy or rainy season, you have seen that how the hay and sand and water looks like in potholes typically back in India. So that slurry typically is very interesting from resource extraction perspective, but at the end of the process does leave out like massive quantity of waste, which is predominantly your sand, silt, other type of minerals such as clays, and then pretty much 30 to 40% of these are solids, but the rest is all water. Now, what the companies typically do, they dump it right now in massive ponds or containment pits called tailings ponds, and they put these waste minerals slurry into it so that on its own it settles, first of all, the solid particles, and the water, the clarified water, can come on top, and you can use the water back into your extraction operation so that you minimize your freshwater intake. Now, interestingly, this is public information. Like for extracting 1 barrel of oil from oil sands, your ore, typically you take or you need around 5 to 6 barrels of fresh water. Now, that's a really big ratio of water consumption. So just think about
Correct.
how many barrels of oil get extracted per day or per year, and multiply that with the extent of water that's required, and that's pretty much your tailings. So the big problem with oil sands is pretty much like that consistent nature of the tailings itself, which is inherent to what's in it, that causes like stabilization of this waste minerals in the water. So pretty much it's a slurry. It doesn't like separates on its own, and you have a very muddy water that has some residue of oil, organics, and then pretty much waste minerals. So that's a big problem. And it's not just in oil sands, it's in technically any metal mining industry as well that requires hydrometallurgy operation. So you pick copper, nickel, cobalt, gold, and then lead, zinc, any other metal, even iron and aluminum as well. It produces massive quantity of waste, and they're getting dumped right now as we speak in massive pits so that it can be contained or treated later on, but then it doesn't get treated. And that is posing a serious environmental and economic challenges for the companies and for the environment, because I think recently in 2019 there was a big dam disaster. So when I say dam, it's actually those containment pits where tailings are stored in Brazil, specifically in Bernardino district. What happened? There was a big iron ore tailings pond where the iron mining company are dumping these tailings. That dam or containment site, it just failed, released close to 2 million meter cube of tailings. 2 million meter cube. That's not a small
Wow.
number. That's a massive big number. It released into the nearby community, killed 278 people. And that was a big environmental disaster. So at that point of time, like the mining community came into kind of like that action mode where they thought, okay, we have to deal with this tailings. We cannot just leave it for the future management to deal with it as a legacy, but more like as an active environmental and economic problem. So that was the environmental challenge. But then there is an economic challenge, which is simply you're dealing with a financial liability. Cleanup of these ponds or these tailings do require massive quantity of funds or resources, manpower, equipment, and pretty much like your technologies like us, what we are building to make sure that you are doing like more like an impactful work rather than again like what goes on the paper rather than what's in the field. So that kind of mismatch typically happens. It's sometimes like just the oil sands right now, the liability is around $56 billion. That means that's the amount of
Wow.
money companies have to spend to clean up that problem. And if it's not, if it's left untreated and continuously companies are dumping new tailings, by 2050, that's going to go up to $256 billion. So just imagine the problem from an environmental and from a financial perspective. Yeah.
Wow,
Aseem,
that's crazy.
yeah, it
Asim,
is
your two
big.
bits on it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Shahrukh pretty much does based on like the major environmental and the financial impact that the tailing ponds have. Like, what I would like to add on is like the other disaster, like oil sand is like pretty much common. Like everyone knows about the oil sand tailings. It's somehow the narrative is when you say tailings, I would say everyone in Canada and outside, like they know that like the oil sands tailings are there occupying such a large area. But like as Shah said, it's pretty much common in the other metal mining industries as well, because anything which involves water to for extracting these metals would end up being put into the tailing ponds. Like the another disaster, we actually had a big disaster in BC as well back in 2014, where this
Yes.
Mount Poly mine dam collapsed. I think it was gold and copper.
Yeah.
Don't quote me for it, but I think it was gold and
It's
copper.
copper, that's for sure.
Okay, yeah, it was copper. Yeah, I mean, and then I think around 20 or 25 billion liters of the tailing ponds water, it contaminated the nearby water bodies. So, I mean, like from that perspective, it's a huge environmental risk, which is which is in a lot of areas, not just the oil sand tailings. It's just that the press around oil sand tailings is that it's a huge problem, but even
Mhm.
from the metal mining perspective, it is like tailing ponds are a huge problem because there are like so many notorious elements which are a part of these tailing ponds, like such as arsenic, mercury, like those all kind of different things are present in this, which are really toxic to like everyone, to the humans, to the animals, to the other living bodies as well. But yeah, I mean, like it's a huge impact, which the problem is when it will happen. So no one can predict.
Mhm.
And that's what is, instead of waiting for that disaster to happen, why not get rid of it right away? And that's what our philosophy is, that rather than waiting for that disaster to happen, we need to reduce the load on these tailing ponds by just treating it at the source rather than just storing them and keep waiting for that thing to
Yeah,
occur.
yeah. 100%. Like as Shahrukh said, that 278 deaths, like we shouldn't have to wait that long for us to lose lives before we start making impactful actions. It's the approach should be to be proactive rather than being reactive in here. So Asim, what is Envicore? What is your objective and how are you guys going to achieve it?
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, like at Envicore, I would say our mission and vision is to reduce the overall environmental impact from not just from the mining, but as humans in general. So we are growing, like the population is growing, our energy needs, our energy demands, and even the sources of our the energy that we are looking at, it's growing, right? And no matter how you extract the energy from, you will always have some environmental impact, right? As we are moving more into this renewable sources of energy, we would need more of these metals to be extracted. Copper, nickel, these are all metals that we need to have that transition smoothly. And with that, all the process to extract these materials, these are like old processes. Like there's not much done on the, I would say, the extraction side of it, because it's a relatively simple process. The only challenge is the environmental impact because of the amount of waste which is generated when you extract these metal. And there's nothing you can do about it, because it's just that, as Shah said, like when you dig these things out, 90 to 95% of the stuff that you are digging out is waste. So for us, like we are like, why not think about that waste as a resource, right? Why can't we have a zero waste mining sort of industry all around? So that's how we started out. Like initially, as I said, like we were initially just targeting the problem of reducing the load on those dams. So if we start getting the water out from these different minerals, the water which is occupying the majority portion of that dam, it's being extracted. There is no need to extract more fresh water, because now you can reuse this water into the extraction, and that is how we started. But with time, we realized, why can't we have a zero waste mining? And that's where we shifted our focus into. Our mission is to basically reduce the waste which is associated with the mining of these important metals, which is anyway going to increase in the future with this transition from more oil and gas dominated energy resources to the more of a renewable resources kind of an industry. So that's our main mission was. But then since then, we have expanded our reach into different mineral waste as well. So one of the things that we recently identified and we are currently working on is, yes, we can upcycle the material, we can recycle the material from the mining industry into the concrete industry, but why not recycle the waste which is being generated by the concrete industry as well, right? Because there are a lot of concrete which is being demolished, there's a lot of mineral waste lying around in the landfills which we can reuse. And that is what we are currently working on, is that we are also recycling some of the concrete waste streams with one of our some of our collaborators in the cement industry, where we are taking up the waste from them and then recycling them back into the concrete industry. So basically, closing that loop on circularity is what our vision is.
Very interesting. So how do you do that? I'm just trying to paint a picture in my head. Is like, are you at a customer site trying to extract this water and then reuse it? Are you doing these things on your site? What does that process looks like end to end?
Yeah, I mean, so from the water perspective, it's not so. The way it works is like a lot of these mining companies are huge. They don't really allow, and it makes sense, right? Because their main operation is to extract, for example, oils or metals, and they don't really want people working in their backyard, which would affect the upstream process of these tailings treatment or something. So the
Mhm.
way our model works is like we are looking to license the technology to these oil sands or the metal mining providers from the water extraction perspective, but that's not our focus on right now. So we mostly are looking into upcycling the mineral waste, which comes out after the extracting the water from this into supplementary cementitious material. And that's where we are pretty much flexible. We can license the technology, which we are in talking terms with some of the clients, but those are mostly on the cement side, like these big cement producers. So they are looking to license the technologies. And the second is we can put our own plant back in at the mine site, where we generate these materials from the tailings waste and then turn them into supplementary cementitious material. Um, it's a huge incentive. So, like drawing water out from these tailings, like from certain tailings, is not very challenging, right? Like specifically, oil sand is a bit challenging because of just the kind of minerals it has. So it has a lot of clay minerals, which are they are notorious for holding water, right? So that's a challenge from oil sands perspective. But some of the other tailings that we have seen are not that tough to dewater. The companies, they are looking or they are doing the dewatering to large mechanical presses to extract water out of it, but turning those waste mineral resources into a cementitious material, it brings a huge value for to them, and also like an incentive for them to treat these tailings ponds right away rather than waiting for mine closure time to get rid of these tailings or do something about it. As I said, like the main thing that we are looking around is like our goal was to give them an incentive to do something with their waste, so that this problem can be treated right away rather than waiting for the time when the mine closure comes in.
Very interesting. Yeah, the reason I ask is because I wanted to understand what does the scaling looks like in your business? How would you be able to scale it? What is it that you're selling to these companies that you're working with? Question now, in terms of your layout of your organization, can you give me a breakdown of sort of who's who in the zoo? How many of you are there? What are sort of your responsibilities?
My job is pretty much to make sure that we're getting all the necessary funds and then government, private equity, and whatever, and then in overall setting up the goals of the company along with the same and other individuals in the company, and just making sure that the collective goal of scaling up the technology, proving the viability at a very large scale, is of paramount importance, and exactly that's what we're doing with our clients as well. So all the client relationship building, government relationship building, then advertisement marketing, whatever you can do. Even though right now we don't spend too much on marketing, honestly, like it's all organic. Whatever comes our way is only because of word of mouth and good reputation that we're building in the construction and mining industry both. That's pretty much myself. Aseem, you already know, he's a CTO and working predominantly on the technology scale up and constant optimization. When you build the technology, there's so many ways that you can still constantly optimize, add new bells and whistles to the process, and you basically have a new technology at the end. So protecting that from a patent perspective, intellectual property perspective, it's very important. So we have our patent lawyers as well that help us in making sure that all the technologies we do, all the optimization improvements we do are protected. We are a total of right now 8 individuals in the company. We're growing in the next 2 to 3 months. We'll be hiring 2 to 3 more individuals to help us in designing the process for a pilot plant that we are building that will go to Germany. And it's actually in collaboration with a really big cement manufacturing company. It's actually one of the world's largest like cement manufacturers. So we'll be working with them deploying this unit, which will be a modular unit and in Germany, and specifically in Berlin and some other parts of our cities in Germany, to test the viability of technology at a very large scale. So that's ongoing. We have an engineering team where we have process engineers and engineering manager who's doing pretty much supporting this whole technology scale up. So talking to vendors, making sure that we have, again, you talk about scalability and how can we go to that particular level where we have de-risked the technology. It's very important for us because one of the point that Aseem was making when it comes to like why we do it and what's the whole rationale of going into this from a water resource company to a more material based company. It's a very different kind of like shift in our direction is only because of this of the sales cycle and
Mm-hmm.
specifically the willingness of the companies to come and adopt our technology. Because, as Aseem was talking about, like it's incentive-based approach where you
Mm-hmm.
give companies that incentive that okay, you now know that okay, it's a waste and it's a financial liability, absolutely. So you have to burn money. But what if I give you the chance of actually make money on it? And there are other opportunities and initiatives already ongoing right now that does do a very specific job of taking waste, converting that into a more useful product, valorizing it. But then what we do, it requires scale because we're not talking about 1 ton, 100 tons, 1,000 tons. We're talking about 1 million tons per year kind of capacity. And that is a massive amount of material. So automatically the scalability of technology is very important. So when you go to these mining companies and say, okay, I have a solution where you can minimize your water uptake by, let's say, X percentage, but then at the end of the day, you still have to spend too much dollar on making sure that comes true, then they'll say, is that a necessity? Is that a requirement? Can I push this 10 years down the line?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, you can do that. But then when you tell them, oh, you have the chance of making $100 on a tonnage basis on your waste rather than spending $5, they'll be like, where do I sign up? So
Yeah.
that kind of mindset is definitely changing. So engineering teams there, and then we have a business development team where we are like again building. But as in the early days of company, you need technology, you need that technical validation, you need that scalability approach that it's verified. So having a more focus on the technical side is something that we are focusing on right now, but definitely building a business team too. So we have a senior VP of business development and strategy who has like more than 30 years of experience in mining industry, like,
Oh
definitely
wow.
more than me, that's for sure. And then we have like our lab tech people who are working in the lab, materials engineer EITs, who are basically supporting the whole bridge between laboratory testing versus scale up testing. Yeah, that's pretty much about the company. But then I think just want to add one point what Aseem was talking about. Typically, we had our fair share of failures as well. It's not all
Mm-hmm.
rosy and successful all the time. Like typically, we have faced imminent issues that were like, okay, this is it. We have to switch our focus, and that was pretty prominently when we were dealing with the dewatering issue, where companies were like, oh, this is ideal, this is perfect, but is this the need of the hour? And the answer is not. It's not the need of the hour. But definitely, when we shifted our focus into more material oriented company, the whole conversation changed entirely. Like companies who were like a little bit risk averse in the beginning, they were like, "This is really interesting. We want to work with you." So right
Mm-hmm.
now we work with like around 13 or 14 international mining and cement producers all around the world. We just started a really big consortium project with 9 global cement companies with the Global Cement and Concrete Association. It's a massive success for us because just think about giving or putting resources for a company just like Envicore in the early days where we are validating our product. It does require that level of trust, and everything goes, as I mentioned, everything goes back to trust. That is, are we trustful? Do we speak the same language? And everybody wants to listen, because if you are like not aligned with the whole mindset and specifically that technical language that everybody wants the companies, especially technology providers, to have, then there's a mismatch. So
Mm-hmm.
automatically what we are doing over here is talking those exact same language and words that people resonate with us. And it goes into exactly, is there a product market fit? Is there a product pull rather than a product push? Previously it was a
Mm-hmm.
product push, but right now it's product pull. So automatically it's a new game for us, and we're a growing company. We want talent. And honestly, we were last time when we were hiring for engineering manager and other position, it was a very difficult situation for us to find the right talent in Calgary. Because when you look for metal mining experience and then at the same time people who has background in cement, it's tough to find. And I think from this podcast, we really want to put this message out as well, if it's possible, for people who are actually working in this domain and want to join a growing R&D company, please reach out to us.
That's perfect. We'll spread the message for sure. And hopefully you do find the perfect people for the job. Stuff that you said there. It's just like really going in there, really understanding what the need at the hour is and positioning your solutions based around that rather than getting a solution and then trying to find out if it fits. And what I really loved about that as well is just that mindset and that approach to be able to work with customers and speaking the same language and finding what that compelling event is. How
Yep.
can we create that urgency for these guys to listen to us? So I love all of that. Just in terms of your industry and your field today, if you have to rate the top 3 obstructions or challenges that you face today, what are those challenges and how can you overcome those?
I'll definitely talk about the finance challenge. Aseem can talk about like the adoption challenges, but at least from a finance perspective, like the biggest problem is it's a chicken and egg problem for us, and we've been struggling with this like for quite some time. The problem is like when you go out in the market and you talk to VCs, you talk to government agencies for funds, non-dilutive, it doesn't matter. The problem is they want to see certain level of validation, which makes sense because okay, they want to de-risk it to whatever level that they are comfortable with. But the problem that we face is the level of de-risking that all these financial agencies want us to provide. It's not possible without the injection of new capital in the company. And that's causing us significant delays in the whole deployment program and deployment plan. We were supposed to already start building our commercial unit, sorry, the pilot unit that would produce close to 20,000 metric tons of this type of SCMs, which Aseem was talking about, supplementary cementitious material, to support the construction industry. But the problem is the scenario right now is, oh no, first you prove it at the same pilot level, which I'm talking about, 20,000 tons level, which is not a small number. We would require anywhere north of $5 million to build that facility, which is again doable. We're raising funds right now. We have major strategic investors coming on board, which includes cement manufacturing companies, mining companies, so on and so forth. But the biggest challenge is with financial VCs, typical financial VCs, they want to see this pilot already built without the injection of capital, which doesn't make any sense because it's a chicken and egg problem. You give me money, I will build that plant, I will de-risk it, but they want us to build that plant first and then give us money. It's, okay, I don't know if that can work out. We need a middle ground where you can give us something. So right now what we're doing to mitigate that issue, and it is very difficult to be honest, is to find a common ground with financial VCs. And I might be in trouble by saying this, but sometimes they're not reasonable. Sometimes what they claim is, yes, they want to support the early stage companies, but early stage companies are not defined. What does early stage companies constitute and mean? We have no idea. Seed stage, pre-series A, don't know. So automatically these create a lot of these kind of attrition on our end because we're not able to move forward because we're not finding those right investors. So our approach is now, let's go to strategics or CVCs, talk to them because they understand what we speak and they know the challenge because they are in the same industry that we are. Because it's a cash intensive process. You have to burn cash to basically build that plant because it's a physical plant. We're not talking about software infrastructure that can be built pretty much with a server space and 5 different laptops. Automatically, it cannot work that way. So that's a big challenge. But then on a product adoption side, Aseem can talk
Yeah.
on it for hours. I'm pretty sure about that.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest challenge from that perspective is from the industry perspective is like the standards, right? So the regulations around adoption of the products, like decarbonization of the heavy industries, steel, cement is right now a huge priority, especially if you look at the I mean, like, I hope that I can say that we have the similar amount of funding being allocated by the federal government in Canada as well, just like the United States is doing. But in US, like decarbonization of the heavy industries is they are putting so much effort into it, and they are trying to make sure that okay, if something comes like the new technologies comes out from these things, we need to make sure that there is no barrier to adoption, right? And that is very important. There are some barriers to adoptions right now, but those are being dealt with by these agencies. For like one such example is so like for the materials that we make, supplementary cementitious materials. So there are technically no standards around using of these, like basically using these materials into the concrete because they are not defined, right? None of these have been used before. These are all alternate materials which now are gaining popularity from that perspective, where they can be used to decarbonize the concrete. But these regulatory bodies are working on it. So Right now, there are only standards around one of the supplementary cementitious material is fly ash. So it's basically ash from the coal, and then they also have some slags which are these are the residues after from the steel making process. So there are standards around it because these materials have been out there for 50, 60, 70 years. But for the alternative materials, there are really no standards out there. What the regulatory bodies have done, there are some standards which does not really talks about the materials per se, but they talk about the composite cements in general, right? So you blend cement with some materials and then you reach a standard, so you reach a threshold on from the strength or the durability perspective, so they are a get-go. But they're also working on incorporating these alternate materials into the regulatory perspective, so there are no barriers to adoption. American Society of Testing of Materials, right? So they are one of them. They are the major bodies who looks around these standards, maintaining these standards, rolling out new standards. So there are those barriers, yes, but the government is really looking. And I would say the other challenge is that like Canada actually needs to pick up from that perspective as well, like the funding perspective, the amount of money that United States is rolling out every year on decarbonization. I mean, like it looks good when I know, like when our politicians talk about in the parliament that we want to reduce our scope 1 emissions, scope 3 emission. It looks good when you talk about it, but you need to walk the talk, right? You need to put more money, put more resources, basically give more support to the people who are actually doing it from that perspective. And that's a challenge which I see and which is a bit demotivating at times, but then again we feel okay, no, it's fine. Like sometimes these things work in your favor, sometimes they don't. So that's how it goes. We have made peace with it, but yeah, those are some of the challenges that we foresee. And there are a lot of, as Shah said, I wouldn't say it a challenge, but that's like an everyday learning lesson for us, is that a lot of new technologies that are coming out every day. So that process optimization that we keep doing, we need to make sure that we incorporate all these new technologies into our discussion, so that we don't miss out on something which can really improve our process just from the efficiency perspective. So that is an everyday work. So I put it as a challenge because it's actually, we need to spend a lot of time to figure out, okay, what's coming out there, how can we incorporate that from that perspective.
Yeah, I think you guys hit the nail on the head with all the points that you've raised, because I have them listed as well from a technological perspective, from a financial perspective. I know it's you need lots of dollars. I know you did a round of funding as well. And as far as the government goes, I mean, we'll run out of ink if we try to list out all the issues where the government can pick up the slack. So my flip question to you is, and this is just to pick up your thought process on it. So you mentioned financing, technology, the government support. Let's say we are able to remove all those barriers. And this is just a hypothetical situation. We go in, we freshen it up, everything is good to go. What would be your most audacious goal to achieve within the next 12 months?
For sure. Like the goal that we have regardless is to put our pilot plant in place and start pushing out material so we can start decarbonizing the concrete which is being poured right now. So that's what our goal is. 20,000 tons is a small number compared to the amount of cement that we use, right? It's a small number, but it's a start, right? So we have to put it into place. We have to show that we can scale up. We have to show that the material performs as we have done a lot of laboratory testing ourselves from the third parties and from our clients. But we can replicate this at scale. That's our goal for the next 12 months. Regardless, we have to somehow get around those problems and deliver it.
100%. Shahrukh, what would be your audacious goal?
Oh, I think it's very in line with what Aseem was talking about, especially there's interesting, if there's a differentiation between audacious and realistic, then I would say I want to build a commercial plant in the next 12 months. But that's unrealistic, though audacious. But what Aseem was talking about, definitely, we want to have a pilot plant built as soon as possible. And regardless, we will build it. There's no problem. There's no doubt about it. We have already started working with vendors, and an engineering team is working full swing on it. So automatically down the line, 12 months, maybe 15 months, we'll have that unit pretty much constructed, installed and commissioned, and pretty much like we'll be running the unit to make SCM. That is very important. And then at the same time, like from a company culture perspective, like we have to grow. We have to instill this idea in the mind of every individual in Envicore that, these type of really big challenges when it comes to like mining, construction, anything, if you have the right mindset and right technological solutions with the right approach, you can definitely have a very close to a silver bullet concept where it can help you in solving multiple challenges in one go. So having that kind of idea and approach in every member of the company is very important. So from a company culture, that's absolutely one of the goals. And then from a tech perspective, scale up is very important, improving the viability to our customers and our clients, and pretty much like our investors too, because we do have a really big cohort of investors, angel investors, some organizations that have supported us before. And we really want to like give them the credit and also the comfort that what they have invested in is actually not those all smoke and mirrors and whatnot. It's real, and you will have a meaningful impact because the investment that you're bringing, it will help not just simplifying the challenges that industry face, but also the lives that all these industries touches during its course of lifetime.
That's awesome. So, Shahrukh, my question to you then is: in your time at Envicore, what would you categorize has been your highest point so far of your organization, and what did that teach you?
Oh my goodness, I have so many lowest points. I don't know if I have
We'll
any.
get to the lowest point. We'll get to the lowest as well, but we'll start off with the good things first.
Okay. All right. I think there are a bunch of good stuff as well, especially when you see the validation of your technology firsthand done like internally by us and then by our clients as well, and getting that same kind of like feedback. The biggest thing recently that happened, we hosted Heidelberg Materials North American CEO and Northwest region actually president and the chief sustainability officer and board member from the global Heidelberg in Germany. And I think it was 3 weeks back. And their specific management team from North America in our office, it was a really big high point in our life because we got to learn why such massive companies like Heidelberg are supporting Envicore in whole idea of okay, let's move forward, think about deployment, think about scaling up and having a strategic partner. And recently we had a really interesting comment came from their side, which was like, as Aseem was talking about, there are too many snake oil salesmen, there are too many competition in the market that actually can promise so many buzzwords that becomes very difficult to differentiate what's real and what's fake, what's going to
Mhm.
work and what's not going to work. So automatically for us to get this comment that we are the most practical solution in the market is one I would say in our opinion is one of those high points in life where we are like, I think we're doing something good. We're not like those similar people what would typically have that kind of mindset like we're gonna fool people until we can make some money and then basically we'll exit the business. So that's one of them. And then additionally, I think in the early stage of company, like we're not a really big company. We're not making revenue, we're pre-revenue at the moment, but organizations such as Techstars, Third Derivative, and then recently World Economic Forum did a video on us, and we've been a very strong partner with Uplink and Accenture and some of the other firms in the mining and sustainability area where, and you can right now visit Envicore page on LinkedIn, you'll see World Economic Forum did a 2-minute video on us, on our technology, specifically to talk about the support that we are doing for mining and construction. Those are some of the high points in Envicore. And I think if I talk one more point, I would say like having a direction in the company is actually it's really good because you can focus. The biggest problem with startups is like the lack of focus. You have too many interesting shiny stuff, and as everyone says, like we have a shiny object syndrome. At least we had from before, where we see anything that's shiny, we'll just jump to it because we see that's an opportunity. And at least that was the mindset we had, at least like till 2022 or 2021 in my opinion. But then as we focused our effort that okay, SEM, focus on mining and construction demolition based, that has straightened out at really well, like with the whole approach and with the allocation of resources as well. Yeah. Asim, go ahead.
And Shahrukh stole a lot of my high points. So I don't know if I can add in more, but I would like to add one. The specific one is that so when we were lazy last round, so we were talking to multiple investors, and then one of the investors was really they were really keen in investing. They really liked the technology, but we just figured out that there is not like we personally felt after talking to those guys that they might not be a great there is a great investor founder fit here. So we went back, we talked to our existing investors that like we have it like we know that they like the company, they like everything, but we have some concerns like we don't see a great fit, and that's where our existing investors they are like it's fine, you go ahead with what you want to do. If you don't want to take that money, we would rather invest the similar amount of money to close your round, and you don't have to worry too much about it, because having that fit is what is most important. And that was a high moment for us, because our existing investor showing that they still believe in the story and they believe in us as founders and where we are going with our mission and vision was a high point for us, at least for me personally, I would say. And that's keep happening because our existing, like whoever our existing clients are, or existing investors are, existing collaborators are, they are really on board with us even during those low times, give us an helping hand. So those kind of are, I would say those things are high points for me personally.
That's awesome. So lots of good stuff happening with you guys. And some of those organizations, Shahrukh, that you named, they're like the top of the top, right? So you are in the big boy league already, I would say. So good job on that as well. Now let's flip the script and talk about the low points. What would be your lowest point so far in Envicore, and what lesson did that teach you?
I would say the lowest point, and that's I have struggled with personally, is like the people management. That is tough, right? Because we have never been, like I personally have never been, Shahrukh as well. Like we've never been employers before. We've always been
Mm-hmm.
employees, right? So managing people, just making sure that they are they are thinking about it the same way as we are, and moving forward the company to achieve those goals, and setting everything in line from managing the people, like from that perspective, there have been a lot of low points in that areas. We, I would say, we did not do great hiring initially. We had some our fair share of failures when it comes to hiring the people, because we also had a very academic mindset to start with. Like, okay, so if you want to do this, you have to have someone with a PhD and then this many years of experience in the research. So that was an academic mindset that we had when we were initially looking to hire people, which then changed a lot. Like we have had some great hires in the recently, and that was all based on those low points where we learned, okay, these are the mistakes we don't have to do. So personally, from that perspective, that's one low point for me, because we struggled a lot. And when I say we struggled a lot, it's because if once you do a bad hiring, it eats up a lot of time when it comes to progressing the technology to next levels. We actually realize that we need to be very strategic about how we hire people, who are we hiring, what are they looking to get from Envicore, or what are they looking to from their career perspective, what are they looking to get out from this experience. Do they want to stay here for the long run? If they want to stay here for the long run, do they actually put in an effort to take it to the next level? Because some of the people have like they have normally people have this mindset that I'll do what I'm being told, and that's kind of what I struggled with. And though that was a learning lesson, so that's one of them. And second was like when initially we were so focused on like removing, basically extracting water out of these tailing ponds. And I mean, like in the news, we see that, oh, it's a huge problem. There are no solutions out there. I mean, there are certain solutions out there. The challenge is, are they economic, right? Are they
Mm-hmm.
economically feasible? So that is what we learned. I would say I call it on the job. So we learned it on the job while we were struggling as entrepreneurs, building the technology and then pitching it out. So we heard a lot of no's at the beginning, right? Oh no, this will not work. Oh, this will not work. Oh, this will not work. There are so many challenges associated with it. But we somehow, those things, I would say that made us stronger and helped us to pivot into, okay, we can take water out, but still, does it economically make sense for them to solve this tailings problem right away? And that's where we pivoted into, okay, we can upcycle this waste and generate more monetary value for the companies. But the initial struggle, that was like, I would say crazy. At times we still struggle, but a lot of, I would say, not so many no's anymore. Mostly from the investors, yes, but not many no's from the clients. So they actually, majority of the clients who were naysayers at the beginning are now, they understand the story and they are on board with us.
You live and learn. You live and learn. Shahrukh, do you want to add anything on there?
No, absolutely. I think that was the most important thing for us is to constantly getting double guessed about the technology's impact and then subsequently converting that or changing that whole narrative from, oh, is it going to work to, oh, how can we make it work? So that kind of thing was, I would say, we converted that as a low point into a high point for us because the
Mm-hmm.
customers who were saying no is now saying yes. But then because in the beginning, we talked about trust, and that
Mm-hmm.
trust thing is very important. within the company, with each individual who's contributing towards the collective development of the company. And it happened where we went with the blind trust, and that backfired considerably. And we were in a cash crunch position. So we were like, okay, this is not okay. And we were, personally, myself, I was at a situation where I was not happy with the way that company was going and moving forward, with us doing really intense job on making sure that the company survives. But then there are certain individual in the company who is like not taking this seriously. And that
Yeah.
is causing massive strain on all the other person. It's not the entire team. It's just one individual that can actually just change the whole situation of growth and progress mindset in the entire company into, oh, what's going to happen if this thing has failed considerably. And I know I'm not giving you the context, it's very difficult to understand without the context, but typically when we send the material, when we do the testing, we do internally, then we send it to the client so that they can do an internal validation in their own facility. That gives a really great kind of correlation of or corroboration of data. So we sent the material, and unfortunately, the material did not perform at all. And we were like, oh, why did it happen? And then we learned that one of our key member in the company actually, like, again, misjudged the entire processing steps and did not follow through each and every checks that needs to happen to make sure that any equipment that you're running is actually like working at its optimal capacity. And that kind of, I don't know, I don't want to say careless attitude, but that was very similar to that, and it automatically just backfired, pushed us 4 months, like, again, from the milestone
Wow.
completion date. And 4 months timeline in a startup is a really big timeline. You'll see that, oh, 4 months is nothing, but for us, 4 months is a lot. So having that kind of setback is not ideal. And that was, I would say, recently, it was a really low point and low moment in Envicore's journey. But fortunately, we've recovered really fast, and we are in a much better situation. Yeah, I
Yeah,
just want
yeah.
to add along with what Aseem was talking about. And
That's
that
that's awesome.
goes back to the hiring strategy.
Correct. I would say hiring is one of the most crucial and difficult part for organizations to do, because again, you invest so much time, energy, financially, emotionally, and
Yeah.
then you have to start over again. So my next question to you is, and this is just, the titles of CEO, CTO, they are very fancy titles, but what does really a CEO and CTO does in a day? So we'll start off with you, Shahrukh. What does your day looks like? What kind of decisions do you make in a day? Walk me through with that.
Oh my goodness. So I call myself as chief janitorial officer as well. So if there's a lab cleanup involved, I can go and just grab a broom and clean up the lab too. To be honest, right now we wear multiple hats, like CEO, CTO, or CFO, whatever you want to call, or whatever we have as a title. It's just a way to tell people who's actually making the decision and how the decision actually flows in the company. But when it comes to day-to-day operation, it's nowhere different than a normal employee in the company, like a lab tech individual. If there's a requirement that I have to go and work in the lab, I'll do that. Typically, if you ask me what happens in the CEO's life, it's sometimes very boring, because you start with all the emails in the morning. You see if there's any client email, which most of the case there are multiples, and then you have to address those because some are very time critical. So you do that, you address those challenges first, and then you set up the day, basically what you want to achieve, because there's so many stuff that you need to do. And I'm actually getting better with the to-do list. Honestly, I suck at those, but my partner is actually pushing me a lot, at least being a little bit better in to-do list and making sure that I organize my day properly, even though I follow calendar like crazy, because that is very important. If something is not on the calendar, I'm not going to do that, unfortunately. But the good thing is, generally, it's the email. You address the most critical component, and then you think about what you're going to do. If there is a grant application due, we have to focus on it. So Aseem and I, we distribute the work accordingly, and we basically tackle the administration and business part, or the kind of like the model part, and then the technology part. Aseem can easily take care of that. So that's not, I would say, it happens on a regular basis. It's rare sometimes, like probably once in a month or maybe in a quarter. But then slowly, when the meetings are there, and sometimes some days you have like back-to-back meetings. So you have to go and lead those meetings because automatically you are representing your company. So you have to make sure you set up the tone of the meeting. You set up what's the objective that you want to get out of this meeting. Because if that meeting is not objective, then it's a waste of time. We have wasted a lot of time because most of the time what happens when you go into a rabbit hole, especially when you talk about technology, it goes in another direction. So you have to make sure that you keep everybody in check and you let them know that, okay, this is what we get out of it. And if you're getting out of line, then you have to bring them back. So that's another job when you do multiple meetings, especially when you're pitching. That's another kind of like situations where you have to speak for at least an hour continuously because you have to talk about the business, you have to talk about the financial, you have to talk about the milestones, and then there will be a bunch of questions. You have to be very quick on your feet because sometimes questions are very generic. You would have answered that probably like 10 times before. But then there are investors who ask very tricky questions and you have to be very realistic with the response because if you're giving all the rosy responses, they'll be like, oh no, this guy is scripted. He knows it really well. So he's either bluffing or he's most of the cases not true. That's one of the situations where most of my time goes in discussing and meeting new clients, investors, and then updating our current investors. So we do monthly checks with our current investor. And what Aseem was talking about, like why our investors stepped up when we said no to, and like it was an interesting business proposition for us, but it was no from a company fit. Keeping them updated, what we are doing, what are the challenges. So you have to think about like entire month worth of challenges. You have to write it down, summarize it, make a synopsis out of it, and then also the high points which you just talked about or we discussed about. So making that in a more like an investor update is something that I have to spend some time. Then any other client visits that we can have or we can arrange so that we can kind of like showcase the technology and the achievements that we have built because we talked about the process and we mentioned, okay, this is what we do. I'm pretty sure that only 50% is what you got realistically what we actually do. But when you see the process, even though you don't have the technical background, you will easily understand what exactly we do and how do we do it. So that is very important for us to showcase the investors as well, because most of the cases, if it's financial VCs, they have no clue about the technology. And they're judging us on that technical context. So automatically giving them the right perspective is very important. So I would say that's pretty much the important stuff from a CEO perspective, but then there's so many additional stuff that we can do. So if Aseem needs support in the lab, I'm there. If there's any procurement needs to be done, equipment-wise or not normal consumables, I take care of that. That's pretty much me. Aseem, you can talk about your day.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, Ravi, indeed, what you said before, those are fancy titles. And I'm just giving a heads up to everyone who is looking to start their own company. Yeah, I mean, like the titles really don't matter at the start. I mean, especially for a hard tech company like us, where majority of the finances are required for developing those pilot and other things. We have to have a very lean team where everyone is wearing multiple hats. But yeah, going to anyway, specifically answering the question. I mean, normally I start my day with my morning coffee, right? As I did today. And then I start my work. So what I have incorporated in the recent past, like, and that's mostly from the learnings I've had from the employees perspective or from the team perspective and how we prioritize our work. What I have recently inculcated in our everyday's work is to start the day with, okay, what's the plan for today with each and every one of my team members? What are you going to do today? And then I separately discuss my plan with the team as well, right? Because since I am wearing multiple hat, I also spend significant amount of time in the process design, as well as how the process is performing at the lab scale. What is the product quality? And then looking at the product, are we getting consistent results every day? Those are the things that I do on the regular basis. So that's how my day starts, with planning the day with the team and how they are going to prioritize their tasks for the day, so we can hit the timelines for delivering our outcomes to the clients, because we have so many multiple projects running right now. So we have to prioritize them accordingly, because some of them, I mean, like, being very fair with that, some of the project, every project is bringing in some revenue, but some are getting as a higher chunk of revenue compared to the other. So being very honest, we prioritized it based on which one is financially better for us. So prioritizing the task from that day. Then, I mean, like, the majority of the day is being spent on, I would say, product testing, product validation, how the product is going, designing the pilot scale. And then in between, there are a lot of meetings and calls that I have to take as well, like along with Shahrukh. And that's how mostly my typical day goes, and then I personally I've been trying to for past, I would say, 3 months, work out at least 3 days. I'm trying to, and then I am also a bit musically inclined, so I at least a day or two I try to do something on the music side with my there's this performing arts team I'm a part of. We rehearse and then we just jam a couple of days, or like a day, at least a day a week. But for past couple of weeks it's been not so much. But that's how it typically goes, like, yeah.
And is that band Madhuban that you were a part
That's
of?
correct.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I really loved what you said there, Aseem. Prioritizing. I love that you're being so honest about it, right? Like, it's because not everything on your plate is important, right? And I
Correct.
think a lot of times people fall into that trap of, oh, I have 100 emails, I need to respond to all 100. You really have to prioritize and then execute. Like, what's the most important thing? What needs to go first? And then go down the order in that. Both of you are immigrants. You were international students coming from India to Canada. What would be your advice? And I'll go to both of you. One advice, if you can give to another, let's say, international student or an immigrant, aspiring entrepreneur who wants to start his career and his professional life in Canada, just one advice and why.
If someone is looking to start their own, I would say, like, my advice is it's a long journey and don't lose hope. There are so many resources out there. There are so many, you can really find mentors who can help you embark on this journey. And that is what I would say my number one advice is, to find someone who has had experience working in this domain before, because entrepreneurship, it's actually, it's very lonely. This thing is, sometimes you actually feel that loneliness. For us, like, I would say, like, for Shah and I, we have been lucky enough that we both have been on this journey together. So at times we discuss our frustrations with each other. But my advice would be to embark on this journey. Before you actually embark on this journey, you need to have a mentor in place and talk to them, because they would tell you the all the ins and outs, all the high points and the low points of being an entrepreneur. I would say, like, in Canada, there's so many opportunities if you want to start on your own business. There are so many people that, like, the people who have done this before or who are still doing it, talking to such people. And there's actually an ecosystem which is being developed, at least in Calgary. Like, the startup ecosystem has really grown, so you cannot really complain that the resources are not there. So that would be my number one advice. Go to the internet, check for the ecosystem, reach out to people, do those cold calls, reach out to people on LinkedIn. 1 out of 10 will definitely respond and help you what you want to go ahead with.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better. I agree with you. Shahrukh, over to you. What would your advice be?
Oh, there's so many, but at least, and it's actually from my own learning. One of the biggest one, in my opinion, is to understand the market. It's super important. What Aseem said, it's very important, at least, to think about how to plan to get into entrepreneurship. But then, if you have a product, and typically this is a big problem with scientific founders like you, who are doing thesis-based masters or even PhDs. The problem is, like, we get too attached to our technology, too attached, and that's not a
Mhm.
good thing, because we believe that, oh, this would change the world, this would make me money, and then automatically that thought becomes so strong and it solidifies in you that sometimes you miss those subtle hints that your mentors and even your market is giving you, that, dude, it's not going to work. So you have to be very, like, realistic with what's going on, like what's the trend in the market, because this happened with me, it happened with Aseem, where we started with something and we were so focused on it that we thought, oh, this will get adopted, this will get see the commercial, like, reality, and then we spent too much resources, too much time, and at the end of the day we had to find a different market, simply because alone the way that the technology or the way the business was projecting in the market was not satisfactory, it was not
Mhm.
fulfilling. And at the end of the day, you are either way too late, where you ran out of money, you have no resources left, and you have to shut down. And that's the worst part that anybody could have, because that would actually happen because you don't listen. So having those mentors who would actually get you the real insights of the market. So having a mentor from a business side, having a mentor from a technical side, from an industry expert is very important, because an industry person will tell you exactly if the problem that you perceive as a problem, is that a real problem? Or is it
Mhm.
just an opportunity for improvement? But then still the industry would survive without it. because either it's a life-threatening situation where companies would shut down without that solution. Then you have to come up with the technology that, yes, I have something and I'm going to project and I'm going to sell it, and then you'll make money. Absolutely, you'll get rich. Because most of the time, entrepreneurs, when they say, I'm coming into the business, it's because of that whole idea of getting good amount of liquidity in a short amount of time, but there's too many risks associated with it. So you have to be very pragmatic, you have to be very forward thinking, and at the same time know your market.
Yeah.
There is no bigger thing than understanding, are you pushing something that is not a requirement, or there's a pull from somebody who's working in this industry, knows the problem, and is like looking actively for solutions. So that is, I think, one of the most important advices. If somebody would have given me this, like probably 3 years down, like before, I would have, I don't know, maybe there was still a hesitation that, oh no, I'm building something that I built in the beginning in 2016, 2017. And then how can somebody say and come and say that, oh, it's not going to be adopted? There's no
Yeah.
business for it. And that hurts a lot, but it's a reality and you have to accept that. You either can pivot or you can find basically ways to make that a reality. But that's like the latter part is very difficult. Accepting the reality is much easier and more realistic and less risk averse. So that's my suggestion. Yeah.
Yeah, that is a great advice, right? Because I see it quite often, especially in the e-commerce world, where people like a product that they want to sell, they have an idea, they go order a bunch of inventory without even like
Oh
testing
yeah.
it out in the market with the first 10 people. Be like, hey, I have this. Are you going to buy it? Are you going to pay for it before you go in and invest all your time and effort into it? Let's go back in time now, Shahrukh and Aseem. You both are from India. I came here as immigrant international students. How was the dynamic back home for you? What was your upbringing like? Where do you come from? And when did you came to Canada exactly?
So I'm actually originally from Bihar, Patna. I completed my bachelor's from NIT Bhopal from Madhya Pradesh, and my background was in material science and metallurgical engineering. And honestly, I graduated my bachelor's in 2016, worked for 15 days in a steel manufacturing company. And then even before that, I already had the offer from University of Calgary. But then I thought like I had the campus placement because that's what you have in India. Companies come to your college and they offer you positions for different roles. And I got one in Tata Steel. That was one of the requirements that you typically have, that if you're graduating from Indian universities, you need to have a job offer, even though you don't accept that. It's a harsh reality, but it's more like a mindset that every engineering students have right now in India is to have a campus placement done and you have a job offer in hand when you graduate from the college. So I had that too, worked for 15 days and realized, no, this is not going to work. It's very difficult. It's a mundane job. You have to do the same thing all over again. Aseem can relate. And it's not okay for me. So I thought I'm good in research, so I'm going to go ahead and pursue my master's. So even before getting that campus placement, I already had the job offer, kind of like thesis offer, full paid scholarship from University of Calgary. So I thought I'll just try out. 15 days worth of money is not a bad thing. So I had that, but then realized that, okay, I have to spend some time with my parents as well, because I'll be leaving them for 4 years, for 2 years at least for masters, and then it's a different situation. But then fate had some other plans for me. My mother passed away in 2017. My father passed away in 2020. That's okay. And it was a difficult situation in life, but then like family, friends, and job, especially my father passed away when we were still working in Envicore. So like Envicore kept me together, not went into a spiral of life, questioning life and situations that happens. At that point of time, it was very reaffirming for me that I had a focus in my life and I have to work together to be at a position where people can actually look up to me and have that kind of expectation that if I'm giving them advice, they would take it seriously. And it helped. We are at a position where I'm very happy with things are progressing. And yeah, I came here in 2016, and to answer your question, and been to, I think I was in India last year in December, but then was there for I think just 6 or 7 days, and my personal trip went converted into a business trip. So we did not mention, but we're planning of actually starting a really big facility in India to capture Indian construction market. So
That's
met with some
awesome.
bureaucrats and our potential partner as well. It was a really great journey. So I'll pass it on to Aseem, but this is what my journey looks
Yeah.
like, and there will be a lot
Yeah.
of interesting moments that we'll share down the line.
I was born in Haldwani. It's a small, I wouldn't call it a small town, but it's a town close to the one of the famous hill stations in India called Nainital. So I was born there, and then I had my initial schooling like up to grade seven uh, there. And then my mom and dad, they both were working. I have seen that thing in my childhood. You when you are where you are raised by your grandparents because your parents are working, and then it started that way. But then my mom was transferred to Dehradun, and that's how I moved to Dehradun. And then I would say I spent majority of my time in Dehradun. Like by the time I was 26, 27, I was there. And my job was also, I was moving back and forth between Dehradun and Mumbai. So I was spending a lot of time back with my family in Dehradun. So I started out as a petroleum engineer. I was working at Oil and Natural Gas Corporation after I graduated. I spent, I worked close to 5 years there. And then around after a couple of years, I started thinking about going for a master's. And as I said before, I actually wanted to do something on the research side, but it's just that they were not so, logistically or from that perspective, there are not many facilities back in India. And plus, it's also a mindset. You see a lot of people, like when I was in ONGC, I see a lot of my batchmates were going to US, Canada. They were trying to go for their higher education there, and they were telling me how good the research and the education system over here is. So it took me a while because I was a bit lazy from that perspective as well, because you have to give your GRE, you have to give your TOEFL and all those things. So I eventually gave all my tests, started applying, and that's how I landed here in Calgary. Yeah, and that's where kind of Shah and I met, and then as I shared before, we started on this journey. Yeah.
Here we are today. So thanks for sharing that with me. And Shahrukh, thanks for sharing your personal family background there as well. I am sorry to hear that. I just want you to know that you definitely so keep on doing that. If I have to ask you, and Aseem, we'll start with you. What advice would you give to your 20-year-old self, knowing everything that you know about life right now?
Oh wow, lot of advices. But I mean, what I would say to my 20 years old, like one piece of advice is just do what your heart says. Don't think too much about it. Don't spend too much time thinking about, okay, if I do this, how are the people around me going to feel, or how are my parents going to feel? Like, just do what your heart says, as long as you think it's correct, because your family, your friends, they will eventually be on board with it as long as it's the right decision. So I wouldn't say just think rationally about it. And that is what I would tell 20-year-old version of myself. Just do what your heart says, but think rationally about it. And if it's something that you think you want to do, just go ahead with it. Like I would give an example. Like I really wanted to learn music. Like basically professionally, I wanted to learn it when I was like, I would say 18 or 19, but there were so many things. Oh, I was distracted. I wasn't sure if I should do it, if I'm good at it. Maybe people don't like how I sing. I mean, like, I started singing on my own. Like, I learned it a bit myself. There were a lot of questions in my mind, but I would say if I have to tell my 20-year-old version right now, I would say, yeah, just go ahead, do it, learn it, and then you will not suck at it.
That's awesome. Shahrukh, what would be your advice to your 20-year-old self?
Okay. I would say like there are certain situations in life where you want yourself surrounded with people who are like-minded and resonate with you and again give you positive energy. And sometimes I'm really like happy and lucky to have those people around me, company-wise, personal-wise, and I think it just helps you understand the reality a little bit more, like in a way that gives you a positive feedback, positive energy, that optimism that it's gonna work out. Because what Asim said about startup and being lonely, it's true. Like it's not that easy. So if I'm 20 years old and I'm advising myself, I'll be like definitely saying that find those right people in your life, build those relationships that would be first of all like long lasting, and they don't expect those kind of obligations that need to be met by you. Because I
Mhm.
have friends who I don't talk for like months, and if I just give them a call and they give me a call, we are exactly talking like we had a chat last week or last yesterday. So that kind of thing is important because that doesn't put you in a position where you are like constantly listening to complaints, oh you are now this and that, you don't talk. So having that kind of friends are very important. And then the family members, your partners itself, because there will be a lot of situations where you are completely helpless. Even though you know that you can get out of this situation, you are in a position where at that particular moment of time, you are like, no, I don't know the outcome. And you need those people who can actually pull you out of that negativity and say, no, you can do it. So having those people around you is very important. And relationship, it takes time to build that trust. It takes time to build. So if you're 20, 19, 18, it doesn't matter. Start building those relationships so that when you need them, they're there. You're not starting at least when you need them, because then it's already too late. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that would be one of the advices I would give to myself. And
Yeah.
and eat healthy.
I think that would be an advice that all of us can use is like eat healthy, work out, meditate, go out in the fresh air, do
Yeah,
all these things.
totally.
But yeah, no, absolutely spot on, both of you with those advisors. And I think it's really important to have a group of, as I call it, like your own cheerleaders, right? Like people who are
Yeah.
there with you, supporting you and there with you through thick and thin. Because there are going to be lonely times, and especially being an entrepreneur when nobody's cheering for you, right? So my question, is there a particular book that you would recommend to others to read, or your most favorite book? If it's not a book, it could be a documentary or a TV series.
Oh my goodness. So I'm not an avid reader, but I really like to get like documentaries specifically when it talks about like those like kind of world-changing innovations, because you need to understand it started with somewhere, that mindset. When we innovate something, like that idea that why does the entire world should have this? That kind of must have phenomena. And it's very interesting that how the airplane was built, how the railways were built, how each and like these machineries that's driving the world's economy right now, how that was built. Those kind of things, it fascinates me because it goes back to the basic principle of engineering, because I'm an engineer, so I'm fascinated with machines. I have love for machines. And honestly, that idea of like how somebody stumbled across like building that first motorbike, building that first car, that was amazing. So those documentaries, and then I have never, I don't think so. I've read many books. I try to, and that's again a to-do thing for me, to have like at least 2 to 3 books finished in a year, not in a month. But that is one book that I've read in my engineering. It was not associated with engineering at all. It was the mysteries, or not mysteries actually, the case of Sherlock Holmes by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle.
Yeah.
My goodness, I'm such a big fan of Sherlock Holmes and the way that his inquisitive mind thinks. So that was the only book that I've read like really carefully with my whole interest, and I follow those type of similar. I don't know if it's a suspense or it's a thriller, but that kind of detective based novel. I know you don't want to listen to these kind of things. I know you were expecting some other really intellectual books, but I'm so sorry. I'm not that typical person that would give you the intellectual book names. Maybe Aseem can give, but honestly, I'm a very typical person.
We'll get to Aseem, but Sherlock Holmes is pretty intellectual, right? So just you
Yeah.
reading about him shows that you were curious and you want to see how other curious people think. So thanks for sharing that. Aseem, do you read a lot? Yes or no? And if yes, what would be your favorite book?
I wouldn't say not a lot, but I read here and there. It's mostly my wife is a avid reader, right? She does pushes me to read a lot, so I do whenever she pushes me to. Like one of the okay, I'm gonna recommend couple of books. The book that I recently read, and that was I've been looking to read that for quite a while, was Atomic Habits. I would say everyone should read it. It's it actually is helping me to build those good habits as well. So it basically gives you talks about practical strategies, how you can build and sustain those small incremental habits. You keep doing this, you you can do it like in one day and build up a habit, but basically just keep doing it incrementally, and that eventually becomes a part of your life. So that's one book that I would recommend. The other one is, and I think Shah has probably read that as well. I don't know why he did not mention it, but that was recommended to both of us by one of our investors, and it's actually a great book for investors. It's for entrepreneurs. It's called Zero to One. So it's
Peter Thiel.
yeah, Peter Thiel. Yeah, so he was a founder of PayPal, right? So it talks about what kind of a company you have to build to basically monopolize that particular like segment that you are going after. So not like those like something which is already existing, so you are trying to improve it or basically reiterating existing ideas, but it talks about you have to build something entirely new, and that's what is required for you to have basically jump from that zero to one and monopolize the market that you are in. I
Yeah.
do listen to a lot of podcasts, right? So I can recommend one to actually everyone who is listening to this, and that is why probably I don't read a lot because I listen to a lot of podcasts. So my favorite one is I listen to Huberman podcast. So he's a neuroscientist, and he actually talks about a lot of things related to neuroscience, how your brain processes information, and how our own performance, be it physical or mental, can be improved just by thinking more about it from the neuroscience perspective. Like he talks about how our brain functions, and like one thing that I really liked about him was like how he introduced the concept of neuroplasticity, basically how your neurons they generate and how information is stored and how you learn skill or you acquire skills by practicing. I mean, I would recommend everyone to listen to you.
Yeah, 100%. Andrew Huberman, he's a genius to say the least. I'm a follower of his podcast as well, so I listen to it quite frequently. And then yeah, that book 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel, I have it in my collection here as well. Apparently, sounds like I have a lot of time on hand because I do read quite a bit. So maybe I need to change things on my end here as well. Aseem, if you could put anything on the billboard for the entire country of Canada to see, what is your message going to be and why?
Ooh. Oh, that's now you put me on spot with that one. I wouldn't say go green that everyone wants me to say, but what I would say is try to inculcate sustainability in your everyday life. Like that would be one thing that I would say. Rather than I know a lot of us mostly complain about a bunch of things, but I'll give you an example of one of my friends. So he's a great I would say mascot for sustainability is because I have seen him physically, like when there was no like this is probably 4 or 5 years ago. There was no ban on single use plastics, but I had seen him like personally talking, like basically telling I don't need plastic bags. You either give me a paper bag or I'll just bring my bag on its own. So he basically took matters into his own hands. He also talks a lot about fair trade and all those things. So I would say he's a great advocate of sustainability. And I would think in our everyday lives, if everyone, each and every one of us, try to take matter into our own hands and look into those small things. Basically, family of two, right, or family of three, you are driving, so there's no need to have two cars, right? You can somehow manage those things. So those small things make a huge difference. So that is something I would like to put on the billboard. Go green, but make it a part of your life, right? Those incremental steps.
Very well said. Shahrukh, what would your message be?
Okay, I know it'll be very similar to what Aseem said, but be resource conscious, because resource conscious or extracting resources on one hand is not a simple task. You have to go through so many steps. And even if we talk about plastic, we talk about oil, we talk about metal, we talk about batteries, anything, it does require a lot of steps that are in certain cases not so good for environment. So if you're being very resource conscious, you're recycling, you're reusing, you're trying to make sure that you cut down those unnecessary utilization of either single-use plastic or like again cars that Aseem mentioned, or any other resources that again is not necessary, it's not mandatory, then I think that should be the target. So being a little bit more resource conscious and energy conscious is very important. There are a lot of push right now to go from oil and gas based energy to geothermal to battery based, or electrification of the entire industries are happening. It's a major, and I'm really lucky right now, and we all are, in my opinion, at least in Envicore, that we are like looking at this transition that happens once in a century or something like that, where you see the energy shift is actually happening from fossil fuel to renewables. It's a big move. So automatically having a little bit more energy conscious is very important. So be more responsible, be more conscious of the nature and your surrounding, and that would do the job. That would save the mother planet.
That's a great message, and we all need to do our little part to save the mother nature, to save this beautiful planet.
Absolutely.
Shahrukh, what does the future hold for Envicore over the next year to 5 years? What are your guys' plan? What can we expect?
So we have very ambitious plans of actually moving forward, scaling up, and diversify. Basically, not just staying in Canada, North America, but to go to different continents, Europe, Asia. Definitely, India is a really big market. And for us, what holds in the future definitely is that scalability approach, that we have to go big. And our pilot plant, in our opinion, is actually quite audacious goal in itself, where we are going with 20,000 metric tons of SEM production and automatically proving the viability of the technology at that scale, and then scaling up to 500,000 or 200,000 tons per year as a commercial plant is going to be like our target. So next 5 years down the line, you'll definitely see Envicore in multiple countries with our operations running and supporting the construction and mining industry. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Aseem, anything do you want to add in to that?
Yeah, we would like to grow our team and employ more people. Basically, give back to the society from that perspective as well, because we know that like with the advent of AI,
Hmm.
a lot of people would be impacted from that perspective as well. And being in the hard tech domain, we would like to fill that gap because we know a lot of skills are transferable, and we would also need people from different domains because our idea is to be like the basically to have an impact from the environmental perspectives for the to make basically the future more sustainable. So we would
Hmm.
like to expand our domains as well. We know right now we can do this, but there are also certain projects which are right now we have put in the back burner because we don't have the bandwidth to follow them forward. But we would like to be the most impactful R&D company in the world in the near future, like 3Ms. And I would say that's an audacious goal, but that's our supervisor also. She sometimes bring that up, that we have the capability to put ourselves on the map like that. And you would definitely see something like that in the future from Envicore.
I just want to add one thing, but when Asim was talking about like 3Ms and whatnot, we used to joke this before, and this is the early days of Envicore, where we were like, oh, we might have a possibility that some XYZ, I don't want to name that company at the moment, XYZ company will come and sweep us or buy us out, and that would be perfect. And then somebody, I don't know what we something was going on in our head. We said, "Oh yeah, maybe down the line, maybe we're the one. Like that company will come and buy the XYZ company, which is technically 100 times bigger than what we are doing right now." So that kind of mindset, where we have the mindset of growth, we have mindset of acquisition, and at the same time, like be in a position where we are distinguished in the market. People would know about us and would have a clear mindset when it comes to Envicore, what exactly they do.
That's awesome. I would say it's good to have audacious goals with a little bit of realism in there so that when the time
Absolutely.
comes, yeah, when the time comes, you have something to set your eyes on. Before I wrap this up, just one last question here. Is there an area that you guys experience or an industry where people are not paying attention to and there's a huge gap? So from an entrepreneur's standpoint who wants to take on a new challenge, what would you say is like a field, an area where there's a huge opportunity and nobody is paying attention today?
Ah, tough question actually. With entrepreneurship, you'll see so many companies opening right now that's basically tackling very unknown problems as well that honestly I had never experienced in my life, and then there's a solution for it. At least from my side, I don't know if I can say that there's an empty market that needs to be
Mhm.
served. I know you're talking about like potential areas where people can actually contribute, but at least in a resource intensive industry like ours, we see that there's huge still room of improvement. So there are certain companies coming in with completely changing how cement get produced, and it's an interesting area, but changing a status quo that's been in the industry for like decades and centuries, it's a hard task. If you ask me, I'll just say maybe the resource extraction industry where each component is very emission intensive. If you can even take one component out of it and try to decarbonize that, you'll make a successful business out of it. There's no doubt. But I cannot
That's-
give you like exact ideas. Maybe we can
yeah.
use it in Envicore. You never know.
Yeah, that's awesome. Asim, anything you wanted to add on in there?
Yeah, that's actually, I mean, there are a lot of areas from process improvement perspective as well. What I would say, one thing that, I mean, like people are looking into it, but I would say haven't made significant strides into it. As if people really want to get into the hard, like for all anyone who is looking to get into hard tech is like, what can we do with the existing waste which is being generated from even from the renewable perspective. I know their timeline is huge. I wouldn't say batteries because there are a lot of people who are looking into the battery recycling as well, but what can you do with the wind turbine blades when they once they are decommissioned? What can we do with those solar PV cells once they are decommissioned? What if the new technologies come into play? I mean, Shahrukh knows more about it because he has worked into that domain as well, like those perovskite minerals and some new kind of materials coming in from that perspective. What happens to those ones? Can we recycle and put them somewhere else? right? Where the energy requirement is less, and these can be, even though they are less efficient, but can get away with those. So those are some. But the major challenge there would be technical, yes, but logistical. How you can figure out the logistical challenges associated with it, and that's a good point actually. Where since I brought up logistics, that is one of the things with when we started looking into tailings, is especially in the oil sands business and some other deep tailings located in the deep areas, is how to solve those logistical challenges. So for a lot of the resources which are trapped in there, one of the reasons for them is because there are logistical challenges associated with them, right? So that's something people can look into. Maybe you can deploy AI and see what would be the best way to figure out the logistical route
Yeah.
to take that out.
Awesome. That's some food for thought for all the listeners. Gentlemen, we're coming to a close. I really do appreciate both of your time. It's been a slice just chatting with you, learning about your journey so far, all the incredible work that you guys are doing. I want to wish both of you lots of success in the future. Just know we'll be rooting for you on the sidelines here. And before I let you go, though, any final words, any closing thoughts from your side?
Yeah, so it was great talking to you. I mean, I would say everyone I mean, a lot of immigrants come to Canada every year. If anyone's struggling here, try to reach out to people and get the help rather than being all lonely and miserable, because that certainly sucks. And there are a lot of, I would say, the organizations within our community or even the other communities. I'm like, there is unity in diversity, I would say, in Canada. That's something we should embrace it. And since you decided to move from your native country to Canada, like, embrace what Canada is providing you, and just go down with it. Like, every country has its good things and bad things, but yeah, don't be lonely about it. Talk to people, and you can definitely achieve greater heights here.
That's awesome. Shahrukh, any final words on your side?
No, first of all, thanks for Ravi for the great opportunity. Really appreciate it, and I think it's important for platform like these to put the message out what we are doing and bring more awareness, not just from a company perspective, but from personal side as well, from entrepreneurship side as well, that there are resources available. Absolutely, and we are available as well. If we get time, absolutely, we'll be happy to support. We're happy to contribute any way we can for the community, and I think from a support standpoint, there are resources, absolutely. Federal, provincial government both does sponsor and give out a lot of like non-dilutive support for the entrepreneurs and even like for any immigrants too. So again, there are resources. Don't hesitate to reach out. And if there's any way that we can guide somebody that can again achieve something meaningful in their life, absolutely, we are all up for it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. You guys taking the time out today for this is helping some listeners, and that's really the goal of our podcast. So once again, thank you for your time. Keep doing what you guys are doing, and good luck for everything in the future.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Ravi.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.